Hi guys, welcome back to EduKingdom College. It's Celine and we'll be going through test 36 today. So some key points for this test is definition. So I really want to emphasize the precise meaning of these words. So I've put up on the board pretty versus beautiful because I would really like you guys to consider the amount of, or to what extent you want your readers to understand like the levels of, say, beauty, right? So if someone says that you look very pretty compared to you look very beautiful, for beautiful it just seems to be a higher standard of beauty rather than pretty. And also please consider its placement in text. So this is in regards to like the paragraphs, like the overall message of the paragraph, but it can also be in relation to the sentence itself. You'll find that you'll ask yourself, like, what is the point of this paragraph? What does it mean? And these words and their specific meanings is what will help guide you to the actual purpose in your interpretation. And also, before I properly begin, this video is incredibly long, and I really apologize for that, but I really wanted you guys to have an in-depth description because we have 3 texts to go through. So please feel free to skip over if you feel like you understand the text already, just so that you don't have any unnecessary information in your head. So yeah, so sorry again that it's so long, but for those of you that are confused, I want you to just pay attention and like really listen to my explanation. But if you already know it, then that's okay. Feel free to just kind of skip ahead. So this is our first extract, Rove co-star slammed over cheap cruel gag by Megan Miller. So if you haven't read this extract already, we have 2 main characters, so Peter Helliar and Pamela Anderson. So Pamela Anderson is turning 40, and as a joke, Helliar says that he's going to give Anderson hepatitis C. Anderson has previously had hepatitis, so it's a bit of a sensitive topic, and it is offensive in that case. Also, there is this underlying message of hepatitis being quite unhygienic, disgusting, like dirty, because hepatitis is associated with those that stigma, that negative stigma of it being unhygienic. People who do have hepatitis are then associated with that as well. So we can see a level of discrimination going on because people who have hepatitis are associated with like a lack of hygiene, the same way that hepatitis is kind of shared. So later on, Helliar does apologize. I think he generally does apologize, but regardless, it was an offensive joke. So question 1 asks us, how best would you describe the comment made by the comedian? So the joke, and I quote, hepatitis, oh wait, she already got that last year. That is offensive because it completely disregards all the people that are affected by hepatitis, and also it is a little discriminatory because there is this association, like I mentioned previously, of a lack of hygiene, and because of that stigma, those with hepatitis are associated with a lack of hygiene, and then people don't want to hang around people associated with that. This is a very spontaneous kind of joke, it seems, and it did not come from a place of consideration, kindness, or an informative stance. If you take a look at the quote I've put up on the board, Miss Tyrell starts giving out statistics and explains how this association, this stigma of hepatitis worsens, is already bad enough, and that this joke from Helliar just worsens the situation. So since it's not coming from a place of consideration and information, it was an ignorant comment to make about the disease. I would like you guys to also note that, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we're going to be looking at some definitions. Ignorant is in like ignorance. So when you don't have information, when you don't know or you have a lack of experience of it, the answer is not A because it's not explicit enough to be an attack on those with hepatitis, and also it's not aggressive enough in order for it to be vicious, at least. C, a funny way of expressing his thoughts towards the actress in question. This comment seems to be directed actually at both those with hepatitis and the actress, so we can't just say only Pamela Anderson. And D, a childish remark. Childish is also often associated with just kind of wanting to goof around and then making mistakes as you go. Childish is also in regards to a lack of maturity, but in this case, ignorance is a better word to use because it's not coming from a place of consideration or information. Whereas D, a childish remark, is like a lack of experience and maturity. So the B would be the best option, especially when you start considering things like the definitions of words. So question 2 asks us, the comedian Peter Helliar responded to the criticism. So as I mentioned before, Helliar seemed quite apologetic, like he felt really bad and he really regretted what he said. The quote I put up on the screen, I underlined, I sincerely apologize, because Helliar he genuinely feels bad for his comment, for his joke. He sees that it's offensive, it didn't come from a place of kindness or consideration. So in that case, it would be best described as contrite, because contrite means that you're remorseful, you regret something, you feel sorry for it, right? Because he's feeling sorry for it, B and D wouldn't be feasible answers, because he's not being angry. He actually feels like a little sad, you know? When you think about it, when you feel a sense of regret, you feel like a slightly sad. For D, thinking that people were too sensitive, he is not defending his actions at all. He doesn't think that anyone took it in the completely opposite way. It seems as if he understands why people were offended. And then C, embarrassed for the offense. We don't get a sense of embarrassment. We actually just get Helliar understanding why his joke was mean and offensive, and he takes accountability for it, actually. So the only feasible answer in this case, because he feels sorry, is A. For our second extract, we have a song. So it's Utopia by Alanis Morissette. So please read this in your own time or listen to the song as well. And then we'll get started on the questions. So why does Alanis Morissette use so many verbs in stanza 2? So I just copy and pasted stanza 2. So the verbs we're given are words like stay, respond, expand, include, allow, forgive, enjoy, evolve, and so on and so forth, right? So all of these verbs have a positive and a connotation with them. So A, to demonstrate the ease which utopia can be achieved. This is not describing the process of attaining utopia. This is these verbs are describing what it's like to live in that utopia. B, to convey how monotonous the task will be. In this case, it's not a task that's boring, and these verbs actually seem quite happy. They describe like positive actions. So it would make sense for the answer to be C, to reinforce positive experiences obtainable in utopia. The reason for that, like I mentioned before, is because these verbs have a sense of happiness with it. To include, allow, forgive, inquire, accept, admit, divulge, open, reach out, speak up. It seems as if these are forms of communication that are very cooperative, lively, and welcoming. And then D, to emphasize how impossible the task would be, wouldn't be feasible because, like I said, This is to describe what the utopia would be like, not what it's like to attain utopia. Question 4 asks us to identify a technique. So stanza 4, lines 13 and 14, which is up on the board, is an example of which language feature. So I've underlined by difference and for every emotion, because those are the actions that are associated with it. So invest in outcomes, we would breathe and be charmed and amused by difference. So we are being charmed and amused by difference. Note that difference is, well, difference can be anything, but it's not human, at least. And then line 14, be gentle and make room for every emotion. So, like I said before, every emotion is not a human entity. So when we think about it, these are metaphors, because it's not saying that we are literally going to be charmed and amused by difference as if it is an actual person, but it's saying that we're going to be like so happy and so entertained by difference, that it's as if we're being charmed by it. Same with for every emotion in line 14. We're not actually being gentle or making room for every emotion. We're going to feel these emotions, but it's going to be so lively or so lovely in this utopia that we are being kind and gentle, and we have space to feel all of our emotions. So these are metaphors. Question 5 asks us, what constitutes utopia for Alanis Morissette? So constitute means to make up of, and I've put up some quotes from the actual song, such as like open and reach out and speak up. We'd open our arms, we'd all jump in, and we'd all coast down into safety nets. We'd provide forums, we'll all speak out, we'd all be heard, we'd all feel seen. So I put these examples up because the overarching message of the text seems to be, well, it seems to be happiness and oneness and community. These quotes, I think, really stood out to me because it emphasizes the idea of cooperation and communication. So we get this idea of Morissette's utopia actually being that strong sense of community. And because of that, this communication, I would say that the answer is D, equity and harmony through communication, because there's a sense of equality. So we'd provide forums, we'd all speak out, so it's quite inclusive, or at least it hears everybody out. Harmony as in peace, we also get that through line 11. We'd open our arms, we'd all jump in, and we'd all coast down into safety nets. So this imagery is actually quite peaceful, it's quite happy, and then all of this through communication. I think all of the quotes support this because you need to communicate or talk to one another in order to have said utopia, or to be able to like reach out to one another. You need to speak to one another, or at least communicate. So that is why the answer would be D. So this is our third extract. Please read this in your own time and take some screenshots. These are the missing sentences as well. So let's figure out which sentence to put in for question 6. Question 6 is the very beginning of the extract itself. We're still getting an idea of what Thomas is like and also his surroundings. So if we take a look at sentence A, he also feared that if they were too far away, the government of Fernando NTII would confiscate what few properties he had left. This would be a good answer because we get an introduction of what Thomas is like. So we see that he is someone that is fairly powerful, but also respectful or a little scared of authority and its power. It wouldn't be B because the sentence is not talking about a patron, like the sentence before at least. In fact, this introductory paragraph is actually talking about how rich he is. So to introduce a patron is quite random. With E, this is like this sentence is not related either, because it's realizing that he would prefer to be in prison rather than, I guess, be broke. But the thing is, it's quite random. We want it to be related to money, and just living in like a decent country, like it's mentioned in the previous sentence. So same with the following sentence, like it just continues talking about his possessions. So we want to talk about possessions. E is like a random insert, and with F, it's in relation to politics, but like I've previously mentioned, we want something that describes what he's like as a person, but also, well, the qualities that he has is, having a lot of money or having a fair amount of properties. So we want something in regards to that rather than topics like prison or politics. So that's why the answer would be A. For question 7, we start talking about Thomas' fear of poverty. So we want a sentence that talks about being poor, being scared of being poor, anything with social status, we would want to include. Also, please note that for question 7, it has a comma after the blank space. So we're not gonna be looking for a complete sentence. We're not looking for like something that's super long. We're just looking for like literally like a quarter to half of a sentence. So for option A, it's B, like sentence B. It had been so long since they had seen a patron that they believed didn't have one, and he could not imagine his daughters deprived of the comfort they had always enjoyed. So if we read that sentence out loud, it seems a bit weird, right? It seems a bit weird because we also want it to be related to, we want the sentence to be related to social status. But then the sentence continues and we want it to be in relation to Tamar's daughters. So let's take a look at option C. He had never seriously considered the possibility of losing his social position, and he could not imagine his daughters deprived of the comfort that they had always enjoyed. So option C would be sentence C would be a feasible answer because it talks about social status, right? We want a sentence that talks about social status, and it's related to the daughters because Tamar is afraid that his daughters wouldn't have the same amount of social power as he does, right? That's what he talks about, or that's what he means by the comfort that he experiences. D talks about Tamar's overall character, so his abilities as a person, as a worker, but that has no relation with his daughters being of a high social status as well. Now, sentence E, Tamar, however, quickly decided that it was preferable to prison. So once again, this is a random topic like prison and then your daughters being of a social status. They're loosely related, but it's not explicit and it is not cohesive enough, so it doesn't fit well with the overall message of the sentence and also the paragraph. So in that case, the answer is B, sentence C. In question 8, we have the very first sentence of a new paragraph, and it also continues. So this is a semicolon, and then it says, it was all a question of making himself invisible until the situation stabilized. So in order to understand what the situation was, I just want to look at the previous sentence. So in the previous sentence, it states, he decided that the best solution would be to go somewhere and wait for the wave of violence and persecution to pass. So there is some sort of political dispute going on that is clearly affecting citizens. So we want a sentence that acknowledges this dispute and how Tama is handling it. So let's take a look at the options. So for A and C, well, we have already chosen that. But even if you hadn't chosen it, for A, there's a stronger focus on Tama's ownerships. So it doesn't really fit because we want a sentence, like I said, that is in regards to the political climate and also how Tama handles it. Same or similar thing with C, because C is more in regards to social position rather than political position, or how politics affects Tama's life. Let's take a look at sentence E. Tama, however, decided that it was preferable to prison. So here, this is a bit random, like I said. Like I've previously mentioned. So prison, and then jumping to a political stance, and then how Tama handles politics, and then waiting for the political dispute to pass is it doesn't seem very fitting, because that's not, well, rationally, that's not how you would handle a political dispute. And yeah, as we can see that Tama quite explicitly like values his family, like his daughters and wife. So this doesn't fit at all. It also seems quite contradictory to what's being said. F, at his age, he had seen a lot. He knew that sooner or later the political pendulum would swing in the opposite direction. It was a question of making himself invisible until the situation stabilized. This acknowledges the politics, and also it acknowledges that Tama has had some experience in politics. So F would be fitting because it's on the topic of politics over things like social status and prison. So the answer in this case would be D, with sentence F. For question B, let's take a look at the sentence before it. It lays on hills planted with ancient olive leaves and sustained a very few backward families. So we're talking about the people living on the estate. Then we have the blank space, and then the following sentence says, on the estate was a frightful house in near ruin, constructed sometime around the year 1500. So the second half of the paragraph mainly focuses on, I guess, the estate and the people living on it as well. So we're gonna look for a sentence that has those topics. Although we have already chosen it, I'll still explain why. Because A is talking about the power of the government and how the government can take away the properties that Tama has. So that's not really related to the fact that there are people living on the estate. B does, however. It had been so long since they had seen a patron that they didn't believe they have one. So that they believe they didn't have one. So this explicitly says like patron. So patron is someone who like serves you or like lives like on the property or estate. It could also just be like people who are like in your, say you're hosting a party, and then there are like waitresses and waiters for those like super fancy ones. Basically, like when you think of patron, you're thinking of someone who is like in that property for the time being at least. So B would be the answer because it communicates the surprise that Tama had felt to the fact that there are still people living on the estate when he thought that there was no one there. C wouldn't make sense because that's related to social position, and then D, source of income, but his options were limited. This sentence could have been feasible if the paragraph wasn't so specific on the fact that we're talking about the estate. So if we were just talking about income and maybe even Tamar's like business strategies, this sentence would work, but we're not talking about that. So that's why the answer would be B. For our very last paragraph, we have the very first sentence that's missing, and then the paragraph continues about how Tamar has basically thought about renovating and also just staying in the estate. So we're gonna look for a sentence that talks about living in the estate, I guess. So sentence A wouldn't be feasible because it talks about Tamar's power, but we're looking for, like I mentioned before, living in the estate itself. C talks about social position. D talks about a source of income and being a businessman. Now, once again, this could have been a good answer, but it focuses on Tamar needing more money and then having like an action plan as to getting more money. But this paragraph is like towards the end, so it's trying to state like, well, he doesn't really have a choice, so he needs to just kind of settle and renovate what he can and then just live out in that estate. It's in that estate itself. So E, talking about Tamar, however, quickly decided that it was preferable to prison. He could stay there a few months with his daughters. It's this sentence establishes the fact that Tamar will be settling and not having like the best luxuries that he's always had. So in this case, E would be, option D, sentence E would be the best answer because it speaks about how Tamar would rather live in that estate than go to prison because of the political disputes occurring. So D would be the best answer. So that's it for this test. I hope you guys have really considered things like definitions. So please try and apply this skill when you answer questions or even when you just write. Try and be precise with the meaning itself, and also consider where you're putting it in your paragraphs or even in your sentences. So that's it for today, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!